Of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, how are y'all doing today? It's one of those Texas days where supposedly it's going to be one thing, and it turned out to be another, then it'll be something else. Did you know we're under a winter storm advisory here?
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, well, looking around, but anyway,
It's a little chilly outside. I was just outside.
yeah, it is a little chilly. Well, anyway, so today we have an important show. They're all important, okay? Don't you think so? I think so. They're all important, but this one is very, very topical. It's the title of the show is "Why Ukraine Matters," because I've had several conversations with people, and that's the first question they ask. I mean, they ask, they're sympathetic, or they don't like what's going on, and they're angry about it, blah blah blah, or they think it's terrible. But the conversation always comes back around to why does this matter to us? And I'm going to try to make that point clear to us. Why does that matter to us? It does matter to us very much. And the impact of what's going on over there will be felt by us here and in very tangible ways. Okay, this isn't a conflict that really involves other people or maybe a small segment of our people. It's going to involve all of us because the impact of what's going on in the Ukraine will have significant ramifications. Now, to say that I know what's going to happen is ridiculous. Okay, I haven't. I don't know. No one really knows. I don't think even Putin really knows what's going to happen here. All right, I'm trying to share this, but my silly phone won't let me do it right now. But anyway, there we go. Okay, I'm getting it shared. But anyway, the point is that sometimes we look at these foreign events as somebody else's problem, and it's going to be absolutely our problem, and that's an unfortunate side effect of being internationally involved. It's an unfortunate side effect of being uh, tied in so tightly economically with other countries. Okay, so let me just take care of this, and we'll get to the sponsors. Okay, I've taken care of this. Okay, so let's talk about our sponsors before we jump into the deep weeds. Thank you, Daniel. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the webpage at CrossFitBurleson.com, and you can find out what the training programs are, the membership plans are, the times operation, things of that nature. So you'll give it a look. If you're looking a place to get fit, don't throw a fit. That's my own little motto I made up for Dan. And Daniel's like, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Anyway, Shandy Stogstill. Hope she's listening because she'll be on the show a week from Thursday. We're going to talk about Burleson real estate in the next couple of days. But the Stogstill group has been a very faithful sponsor, and I appreciate that. She and CrossFit Burleson are to my originals, and I appreciate that. Turning transactions into relationships. Also, check out our 817 Life page, 817life.com, and you can find out what's going on in this area. Also, thank you to Rex Russell. Yesterday was his birthday. Hope he had a good one. Russell Wealth Group at myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link, find out what he offers there, dealing with 401ks, IRAs, all the A's. So myfinancialbox.com, watch his video, make an appointment, become a client. Also, Kimmy, I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, at BNI, Optavia, 817-789-1622. I've had several people on my Facebook feed or just acquaintances, my brother-in-law, they all have used Optavia or are using it, and they all say it's very effective. It works. So if you're looking to lose a little weight and keep it off, call 817-789-1622 and talk to Kimmy. She can take care of that for you. Also, Gail Moore is another BNI friend. She's on top of the Windmiller building on the third floor. She can help you with design. She can help you with cleaning. She can help you with repairs. And she has a very, very nice inventory as well. And so I would drop by if it's time. It's never too late to buy jewelry for a friend. So anyway, this is a complex story and a very, very fast-moving story. I was talking to Taylor before the show, and yesterday I was doing my reading routine that I do every day that I've talked about on the air before. I was doing my reading routine rather late in the day, which is very uncommon. I usually like to do it at least before noon, or at least even earlier than that. And what's interesting is that the news was updating, but the editorials and the commentaries and the opinion pieces already were out of date or already irrelevant. I was reading like in the Washington Post editorial section yesterday about 3:30, and they were already making comments that were completely irrelevant to the current situation that was unfolding right now. And a couple of the nitwits on the Washington Post, particularly Eugene Robinson. I don't know if you follow these guys or not, but Eugene Robinson's is not one of the sharpest tools in the drawer. He already was, making claims about how much better Biden would do than Trump in this, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's Russians in Ukraine. So that's the kind of things happen. Same thing happened today. I get up early, relatively early, and I get on the news and start preparing, and I'm going through the process. And what I read at 9 o'clock, I couldn't even share with you now because it's changed just in the last 2 hours. If I'd had a show at 9 o'clock, my podcast would be somewhat irrelevant, and maybe this one will be too when it gets on Apple and Spotify tomorrow. But I don't know that. But this is what is happening at 11:06 on February 22nd. By the way, everybody's making a big deal about all those twos. Taylor, you seeing that on your social media? You know what I'm talking about?
What, the 2222?
Yeah, my
Oh,
Facebook
yeah, I
feed's
saw
full
it.
of that, and it's okay. Well, it keeps them out of trouble. So I guess the next time this will happen will be 3:33:33. Oops, wait a minute, that's not going to work. Anyway, uh, back to more serious stuff. Here's the current situation as we speak now. There's two regions in southeastern Ukraine, Donbas and Luhansk, which up until probably yesterday, 99.9% of Americans had no idea what those were. Donbas and Luhansk are the very southeastern provinces of Ukraine that have a very strong strong proportion of Russian population, Russian speakers, and things of that nature. It's it's probably the most Russianized section of the Ukraine. And there have been two separatist movements within those provinces that have been supported and funded by Russia to try to have those two provinces break away and then merge with Russia. Combined size of Donbas and Luhansk is probably about the size of the DFW area, if you want some sort of comparison. So you look at like the entire Metroplex area, and that's about the size of the territory that's being claimed now to be independent. And Russia immediately recognized them as independent nations, which is a joke. Okay, let's be clear. The whole purpose is that once all this is over, those two regions are going to be merged into Russia. Now, it'd be very, very similar as if we had separatist movements in South Texas and Mexico recognize them as legitimate independent countries. Now, I hasten to add there is no such thing going on down there. The people of South Texas have no interest in leaving the United States, but it's similar in terms of that. That's the best I can give you in terms of a mental picture of what's happening. You do have a large Russian population in southeastern Ukraine, and that is among the other pretexts that Putin is using to move troops in there to support allies and the Russian-speaking people. Another historical example would be like what Hitler claimed in northern Czechoslovakia, which was called the Sudetenland. And some of y'all may remember this from your history. So where Hitler said these are all German-speaking people, and therefore we demand to be part of Germany, and that was the part of the deal that was brokered in Munich. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen here, is that because of economic and convenience sake, and the desperate quest for peace, that those two regions are basically going to be given up to Russia, and aggression is going to be rewarded. That's one of my concerns among many, is that they basically the European Union and Biden are going to say, well, it's a small sacrifice, and there's a lot of Russians there anyway. Now, the whole thing yesterday was a joke. They had this so-called celebration in Donetsk, which is, I'm trying to pronounce it right, which is the capital of this new Donbas Republic or whatever. And they had like 50 people shooting off fireworks, and you'd think that, it's 4th of July or, something like that. It's a scam is what's happening. Those two so-called republics are basically they've been the source of contention and fighting since the Crimea was taken from the Ukraine. And the pretext is that what Russian propaganda back on their media is doing is saying the poor Russian people of these areas of the Ukraine are being oppressed and brutalized, and they are showing all these false narratives and all these false videos of Russian refugees and so-called abuses. This is exactly what Germany did with Czechoslovakia, Austria, Poland, where they would create this propaganda that German-speaking people in these countries are being abused and mistreated and sent to camps and all this other stuff. That's exactly what Putin is doing now in Russian media. I forget which page I saw it on. I think it was, well, I can't remember. I don't want to say, but I saw some examples of Russian media propaganda. I know it was on NBC. That's right, and they were showing how the Russian media was portraying this as American aggression, and how the Ukrainians are mistreating the Russian people, and how Putin's going to go save them. This is exactly what Hitler did to the German people when he was justifying his invasion of Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Poland, that he was saving the Germans from these evil foreigners. And so that's part of the game there. Now, what will this lead to? God knows. I mean, I'd like to know. I'm sure everybody else would like to know this is going to lead to. And my feeling is that this is not enough, because if you look at what the ultimate goals of Putin are, they're not going to be solved by taking two small pieces of the Ukraine and saying that's good enough. There's no way that's going to be good enough. The markers he set down about what would need to happen for him not to invade Ukraine can't possibly be done with an independent Ukraine coming out intact. It's not possible for him to say these two pieces of land are going to satisfy what we're talking about. He has made two things non-negotiable, and one is the existence of the Ukraine as an independent nation. Second one is that we have no more NATO expansion. Third one that come to mind is also we remove any missiles or any kind of military presence of NATO to far back from the Russian borders, out of Poland, out of Romania, out of Bulgaria, anywhere else, out of the Baltic states. Those are non-negotiable to him, and they're non-negotiable to us. So there, when Kamala Harris, who I'm going to play a clip later, who I put my partisan hat on. It's an embarrassment to send her to the foreign diplomatic situations like this. But anyways, they talk about a diplomatic end. There is not going to be a diplomatic end, because the things that Putin are demanding will not be resolved by diplomacy unless we completely cave, or he completely caves, and neither is going to happen. Or at least in his case, it's certainly not going to happen. If he caved on his demands, he'd be through as the Russian leader. I don't know. I'm not saying he'd be overthrown by some revolutionary democratic movement. He'd probably be overthrown by his own cronies. So Putin can't back down. He has committed himself, and there's only one outcome that he's going to have in which he comes out the winner in his mind, and that is no more independent Ukraine, no NATO expansion. That's it. And if we cave, what that means is we're going to let Russia dictate our alliances. And what that means is that in an independent Ukraine, which you say, well, that's very unfortunate. In a few minutes, I'm going to go over why an independent Ukraine is so important to us economically, not just diplomatically or politically, but economically. We're going to look at that, some of those things. Why is that important? And if we back down on this, the consequences will be felt for long, long time. Now, the question I always got when I was talking to my friends and relatives about this was, well, what do you want to do? You want to send American troops in there? That's not going to work. Politically, first of all, politically, it's unsupportable. There's neither party is calling for that. Very, very few people anybody that's talking about this are talking about sending American troops into the Ukraine. I don't even know if that's going to solve the problem, because I've heard various amounts, but they have up to 200,000 troops roughly. If you include their separatist allies, we'd have to send 200,000 men just to equal that. And that's not going to happen. And if we started sending in, heavy duty artillery, there will be massive repercussions. So as far as us using military force directly on it, it's not going to be part of the solution. But the sanctions we're talking about are also going to be a limited effect. So we're looking at a very difficult situation here. So let's see what the responses to that invasion is, and that's exactly what it is. I don't care what Putin says, and we shouldn't allow this waffling going on. Well, is it really an invasion or not? It's an invasion. And every time you have a foreign military power on your territory, it's an invasion. Period. Anyway, what's the response? Well, the Ukraine is very defiant. They said we're not going to give up an inch of territory. Good for them. They can't just if they basically say, well, we'll negotiate and let these two republics go on their own way. They basically have betrayed the Ukrainians that live there. There's a lot of Russians that live there, but there's a lot of Ukrainians that live there. This is Ukrainian territory, and they would betray their own people if they gave this up. And so good for the leader of Ukraine is a guy named Volodymyr, not Vladimir, but Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky, I admire his guts because he's basically said, we will not give up our territory. And that's good because if they did, then the Russians will just impose their will somewhere else in the Ukraine. They'll find another pretext. They'll find another reason. And we'll be all back this very, very soon, within a year, within a month. Who knows? But if they basically cave on giving up their territory, then the game's going to be over for the Ukraine as a whole, and they know it. So they will not concede any territory, and they're going to do what they can do. Now, if you think, well, gosh, the Ukraine doesn't have a chance against the Russian army, don't kid yourself. The Ukraine is one of the largest populations in Europe. It is the second largest country landmass after Russia itself. And so they have a fairly significant military. Plus, they would be backed by Polish troops and Romanian troops and Lithuanian troops. Why? Because they see the same thing happen to them. Finland would and Sweden would also probably be involved in that because they see the same things happening that they've seen in their histories before. So good for Zelensky. I hope he's able to maintain it. And he has also been very critical about the slack response in certain parts of the alliance, supposedly, and I'll get to that too. What about Russia itself? Well, yesterday, Russia President Putin gave a speech on their Russian media, about an hour-long rambling discussion about why we're going into Ukraine, and it was full of historical inaccuracies. Basically, his opinion is Ukraine is not a legitimate country. Now, I was asked this before, how long has Ukraine been an independent sovereign nation? It's been 1991. The Ukraine itself was parts of all these various European empires, Russian, Prussian, whatnot. I mean, I try to read a little bit about their historical development, and my head was spinning because of all the takeovers and movings and all. And there have been periods in history when the Ukrainian landmass was part of the Russian Empire under the czars and whatnot. Well, it was created in the aftermath of World War One, and very quickly was absorbed by the Soviet Union. They set up the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, which was part of the USSR. And then when that fell in 1991, they drew the borders of the modern Ukraine, which included Crimea, which the Vladimir Putin very much disputed then and now. Now, when Putin comes to power in 2000, after the joke they had as a Russian president, a guy named Yeltsin, Putin comes in, and he came in with this in mind. He's been advocating this openly for about a decade and a half, and the Crimea was just a first shot in 2014. So he's been advocating that we need to take over Ukraine again and reabsorb it into Russia. Why? Because it's our land, it's our culture, our language, it's been our territory, that the Ukrainians and the Russians are really one people separated by politics and by artificial borders. Now, the Ukrainians resent being lumped in with the Russians. I've had Ukrainian students, and they made that pretty clear. Not that I was joking with them about it, but I did ask, I said, do people mistake y'all for Russians because of the similarity of the names and whatnot? And they said that they took great lengths to define themselves as Ukrainians, not Russians. Much like, like an Austrian would say, I'm not a German, that kind of thing. So they have their own culture and their own language and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and on and on and on. But Putin says those are all illegitimate. They're all just creations of the West. They're not legitimate institutions. That Ukraine is not a legitimate country. Why? Because it was created by politics, not by ethnicity or the natural organic formation of countries. Second of all, he says Ukraine only exists because of Lenin, that Lenin created the Ukraine for the Soviet Union, and therefore his main goal has been, not just in Ukraine, but other places as well, to reestablish the Russian hold over the nations that have emerged after the fall of the Soviet Union. It's hard to calculate or hard to put into words just how catastrophic many of Putin's circle see the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. They've called it many times the worst thing that's ever happened to Russia. This is the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century, which had their share, certainly. And they want to reestablish their control over Belarus and the Baltic states and Georgia and Kazakhstan and Chechnya and all these other former Soviet republics. They want to reestablish that because they don't see any of those as legitimate. And so what they'll do is, in some countries, if they're being opposed, they will support separatist movements, and they will also, in other countries, they will support regimes like in Kazakhstan and in Belarus that are pro-Russian. They're basically just Russian satellites, and therefore they're going to support those. But as far as the Russian mindset, Putin's mindset, he says these are illegitimate countries. That's our territory, our institutions. He called the Ukrainians and the Russians a one people of one spirit, and basically he's trying to act like the Ukrainians have been hijacked from Russia. Also, we can't underestimate by any means the economic situation that Russia's in and the Ukraine is in. The Ukrainian economy is better, markedly better than the Russian economy. And Putin knows this. And if the Russian people knew this better, if they had a free and open press, they would begin to ask questions. Why does the Ukraine have such a better economy? Why do the Ukrainians have a better standard of living than we do under their system? Why don't we have it better here? We're supposed to be a bigger, better country, but Russia is not a wealthy country. And Putin knows this. One of the most underreported things that's been underreported about this whole thing about the Ukrainian situation. We're all talking about politics, and we're talking about NATO, we're talking about defense strategies, we're talking about, culture and heritage and language, and all of those are true. But one of the most underreported parts has been the economic situation that the Ukraine versus the Russian government is in, Russian people are in. And that's a really important thing. And I borrowed this off of Facebook. One of my friends posted this, and I'm going to read it from that. So I got it from that. Thank you. One of the first times Facebook's been helpful for that. But here's a few points of data on a per capita basis, on a per person basis. The GDP of Russia is 85th in the world. That's lower than Bulgaria, Romania, almost all of Western Europe, and it's lower than Iran. Heavily sanctioned Iran has a higher GDP per capita than Russia does. The GDP of Russian citizens per person is $11,436 a person. Compare that with the United States, it's $66,312. We have 6 times the per capita GDP. That's a real measure of economic stability, is not just how much you're producing, but how is it distributed amongst the people and whatnot. And so the United States is like 7th in the world. Some of those oil states have really high GDP per capitas. As far as non-oil states, I found this interesting. The two countries that were kind of neck and neck were Ireland and Liechtenstein. This is great. All right. So it's lower than Iran by about 10 spots, 85th in the world. Its GDP is 11th in the world. It's at $1.67 trillion. That's lower than Spain. That's lower. It's about the same size as Spain, actually. It's lower than Italy. It's lower than the major Western European powers. Compare their $1.6 trillion to America's GDP of $22.2 trillion. So we are, 20 times the size economically of Russia? And so they're having real serious economic problems over and over again. They've had it for a long time. John McCain called Russia a gas station with nukes. And okay, I can dig that. A gas station with nukes. That's very witty. But the thing is, most Russian people live very, very tough, hard lives. You see all these Russian oligarchs and whatever else, that's a very small number of people at the very top and elite, the circle that Putin will dominate. But for the average Russian, it's a hard, cold winter every day. So, and then you look at Ukraine itself, of course, the Russian people, if they had a chance, they look over to the Ukraine, and it's a mineral powerhouse. All right. It has all these different mineral um, deposits, whatever else. It is the first in Europe in uranium ores. Now, that's very helpful for a nuclear power to have as your own source of uranium. And as far as titanium and manganese and mercury and shale gas, on and on, they're third in amount of recoverable shale gas. And so we're talking about mineral-wise, economically, Ukraine is tremendously on the verge of exploding that potential. Their economy has really picked up in the last 10 years when they got rid of in 2012, when they got rid of their pro-Soviet or pro-Russian leader in what was called the Orange Revolution. I don't want to get into all that, but I'm just saying they've had a genuinely democratic republic for the last decade or so when they got rid of that Russian stooge back in 2012. I forget his name, doesn't matter. He's not worth remembering. Also, in terms of agriculture, it's the largest producer of many agricultural products in Europe, either first or second or third, but it's like the first in or second rather in barley in the world. In barley exports, it's first in terms of arable land area. It is the fifth largest rye producer in the world. It's eighth in wheat exports, on and on and on. Russia is not in any of these categories. You look at the top 10 producers. The only thing that Russia is in the top 10 is oil. And the Ukraine is poised to, be a competitor in that market. So you look at this list, and you look at also the industrialized portion of it. It has a very mechanized economy, with high tech and also, industrial manufacturing. It's in the top of most of these places. And so what we're having here is a situation where the Russian economy pales in comparison to the Ukrainian economy. And therefore, the Russian people are going to start asking, why are the Ukrainians doing so much better than we are? What is it about their system that allows them to live a better life? And Putin can't allow that to happen. If Putin allowed that to happen, he knows his time and his type or their time is limited. He knows that his days are coming to an end. Now, I've been asked, how old is Putin? He's 69. He thinks he'll live forever. But that's not the point. He wants his legacy to live forever. He wants his successors to live and to honor him in perpetuity and govern as he is governed. Very Stalin-like ideas in his head, in other words. And so he's not going to let a Ukraine stand. That's the response. Because it isn't just, some sort of historical claim. The Ukraine is an affront to everything that Putin stands for and Russian government stands for. Ukraine is a rebuttal to the Russian economic and political system. Ukraine is a rebuttal to the idea that you can't have civil liberties and a democratic government and a thriving economy. Putin can't allow the Ukraine to stand, because if it does, he knows his time is up. Eventually, the Russian people won't stand for it forever. When they see all around them people prospering under their systems and they suffer under theirs. All right, let's go over the second round. We'll talk about the United States responses. Thank you, Otto, over at our place. I was there yesterday having lunch with a friend, and he come by and schmooze. It's a great lunch as always. That chicken fried steak really is good. I'm not just saying that because I'm sponsoring. He sponsored me, rather. It really is good. And a lot of people, I went there about mid 12:30, 12:45, and packed, of course. Our Place restaurant. So thank you, Otto, for your sponsorship and your friendship. Also, thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. If you have a cigar smoking family member or friend or whatever, go get a few cigars or a gift card over there. Also, it's a good place to have a drink in a quiet, decent atmosphere, a little jazz music going on. They got the ball game on mute on the TVs, so you can follow the scores if you want. It's a good place to go. It's a nice place to hang out, and it's well ventilated. So I've been asked, is it really smoky? And the answer is no. Now, does that smell heavy aroma of cigar? Sure, but it's not like some cloudy, dark smoke. It's well ventilated, high ceilings. So go there, and it's a good place to go for a little class. All right. Also, thank you to Antonio over at Proactive Payment Solutions. ProactivePaymentSolution.com is the website. He'll help you with the point of sales operations. He'll get you the best rates. He'll get you the best systems. There's numerous types of operations of point of sales online, and he knows which ones you could use, which one to fit your business the best. So go ahead and give him a holler. He's a good man. He really is. I'm going to have him on the show as best we can. It's hard because he also works for a living. So proactivepaymentsolution.com. Also, yesterday we had Sarah Beagles, Payne Beagle's wife, and it was a great show. Sarah Beagles is a lovely young woman, and It was a great show, talking about her work with the Alzheimer's Association and also The Longest Day. I hope you could check that out on the YouTube podcast or Facebook offering, whichever one suits your needs. But they have a really great program coming up, and I was really very impressed with her, and so give it a look. But anyway, we talk about Beagle's technology solutions. He can make your house into a smart home. He could help you, uh, unify a lot of the systems. Okay, I'm going to read the memo he sent me here. Whether you need help with the big things like turning your house into a smart home or transforming the technology in your business, or the little things like migrating your data to a new computer, setting up parental controls in your home network, Beagle's technology solutions provide seamless integrated technology solutions to help you meet your goals through on-site and remote support. This is part's important here, I think. Our services, well, it's all important, of course, but this is noteworthy. Our services have also expanded to include aerial photography and videography. If you need aerial photos to help with real estate advertising, roof inspections, construction progress, surveys, or any of the projects, we can provide HDR and 4K content to help enhance your business. So there you are. It's we could help you with all those things. So give them a call over at 817-944-3572 or hit beaglestech.com and he could show you what to do, help you out. Also, Tiffany Griffin over at Local Life Magazine. It's coming out next week. It's going to be great, as always. Great ads, some local articles. It reaches 30,000 homes and 110,000 people. If you want to see it right now, what's going on in February, locallifetx.com is up. You can look at that, and they have specials on there too. If you want to advertise with her, the contact information is on the website and in her magazine if you're fortunate enough to get it. And it's a great place to reach the local markets. Also, speaking of rocking and rolling and carrying on, Burleson Radio on Live 365. I got to say that right. Live365.com. Look for Burleson Radio, your voice, your station. We're rocking out right now. I'm going to have a couple of special shows on later this week. So my webpage will tell you what they are. That's a good way to get you at the webpage. Very subtle. See that, Taylor? I'm getting this marketing thing down.
You really are. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I'm getting the segue thing. Okay. What is the America's response? Well, Biden, it was Biden. He needed somebody to stiffen his spine because the original reports was they were this morning when I was reading them about 3 or 4 hours ago, about 3 hours ago, they were debating whether to call this an invasion or not. I don't know what else it can be called when you have foreign troops on your territory, but they were waffling about, is this sufficient enough for the full-on sanctions? Now, yesterday, they did place sanctions on those two republics that only Russia recognizes, on Luhansk and Donbas. And so, by God, no American investment in those territories. And I can't even imagine what that'd be. Maybe some oil and gas or whatever else, who knows? But it just, that's ridiculous. But the European Union was calling it an invasion. And finally, they got around about an hour ago in calling it an invasion. But the original reporting this morning has the White House waffling as to what it was really to be called. I'm going to look over 5 news sources, from left to right, literally. Okay. On the New York Times, you have this article here about White House weighs how hard to hit Russia with sanctions. I don't understand that. How hard? You hit them with both barrels. This is some gradually escalating thing. It's not going to change Putin's behavior. I'm going to get at the end of the show. I'm going to talk about how sanctions really are, not as effective as we'd like to think they are. But they're basically saying, well, is this enough to bring on full-on repercussions on Russia? What kind of question is that? And why are they waffling around about this? Second of all, the other articles in the Times and the Post in particular say they're debating what kind of sanctions. Why was this not in place already? Why was this not something that had already been decided that the moment a Russian boot hits Ukrainian territory, bam, there you are, instead of this, well, maybe it's not. This is exactly what he was criticized for in his press conference about a month ago when he basically, a lot of people thought he just gave Russia the green light to do what exactly he's doing now, which is just gradually invading. When Biden got up on his press conference about a month ago, he said, well, we have to determine how severe the invasion is. What kind of question is that? What kind of response to that? An invasion is an invasion. The European Union has shown more guts on this, and that takes some doing, because the European Union is not. I've never been impressed with them diplomatically or politically. But that's another story. But now the White House weighs how hard to hit Russia with sanctions. You hit them with both fists. You don't just go, well, we're going to gradually do it and all this other stuff. Okay. European leaders are considering a modest initial set of sanctions on Russia. That's a new article. So they're just modest. Tell that to the Ukrainians in those territories. Well, we're going to hit with modest sanctions. That ought to get his attention. Washington Post. Okay. Finally, the headline is U.S. calls Russia's actions an invasion, readies new sanctions. This is not the headline I read 2 hours ago. That's fine. Maybe they're finally getting their act together. But another one I think is interesting is Germany will halt authorization of that gas pipeline from Russia. Why in the world they were getting their natural energy from Russia in the first place? They shut down all their nuclear plants. I think there's 2 left. They're in their remaining days of being shut down, and they willingly put themselves in a situation to be blackmailed by Russia. I don't understand that. Never did. This Nord 2 pipeline, which Biden gave his approval. Not the Dakota pipeline would help Americans, no, but he gave the Nord Stream pipeline, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, his approval. Thanks, Joe. I'll get to this in a minute. Okay. So, so there you have, I'm sorry. There you have on the Washington Post, also in the Wall Street Journal. It's talking about also cracks in the Western resolve, and this is a newer this is an editorial, and basically it's saying the Wall Street Journal saying why same thing I said. Why are they not already have these sanctions? Why are they waffling on them right now? Why do they not have these already on the ground, ready to roll? Now the new headline. This is about an hour old from the Wall Street Journal. Russian troops enter Ukraine region. West plans sanctions. Again, they planned them. They haven't implemented them. This is why what Putin is gambling on is they're going to waffle on him, and so far he's winning it. Politico, here's another example of the miscommunications going on in the Biden administration. One White House official says this is the beginning of an invasion. He was not speaking on authorized behalf of Joe Biden, according to this article. Now it's an invasion, as they call it. But when this article came out this morning, we had people in the Biden administration saying it's invasion. We had others saying maybe it isn't, or had other people saying it's not sufficient enough invasion, as if there's a level of invasion that's acceptable. So the White House was all over it this morning, all over the map on their assessment. Fox here, they talking about Putin calls on Ukraine to demilitarize ahead of Biden remarks addressing invasion. Well, good luck with all that. Basically, again, you have in the Fox article a lot of debate within the Biden administration as to what to do, as if this was a complete surprise. They've had those troops on the Ukrainian border for like 3 months now, and they've had a presence in those regions for 8 years now. You'd think they'd have something on the shelf ready to roll. Just lock and load and go. And no, they're debating on what to do. This is why I get so frustrated with the Biden administration. Because how this came aware is like, my gosh, who would have thought it got cold in the winter? Of course they're going to invade. The moment that, like I said, last night when the Russian troops crossed the border into Ukraine, that's when the sanctions should have said, okay, bam, they're on. And now they're debating, even the Europeans are debating modest sanctions. At least the Europeans called it an invasion before we did. I'll give them that much credit. But everybody's waffling on this, unsure what to do. What's Putin's next move? We'll wait and see what happens. Instead of taking it to him, he's taking it to us. Okay. Now the political and media hypocrisy on this is staggering. Of course, you have editorials saying one of the editorials that really struck me. I mentioned Eugene Robinson's. He basically said if Trump was in power, Putin would already be in charge of Ukraine. I don't know that. He doesn't know that. You don't know that. The point of the matter is that these aggressions have taken place under Obama and Biden. I don't know what Trump would have done. Would have been better or not? His supporters will say he'd have been a lot more forceful and all this other stuff. But then again, Trump also had a very strong aversion to military involvement overseas. It was he that began the process of withdrawing from Afghanistan. Now, again, it was under Biden's watch and was abysmally handled. And there's no question his withdrawal from Afghanistan has led to some of this we're talking about today, because the Russians saw how incompetent it was and how disorganized it was and how obtuse Biden was about it. And so, yeah, there's a direct link there. But, Trump also wanted to withdraw from Syria. He wanted to withdraw from Iraq. So the idea that, if Trump were in power, this wouldn't be happening. We don't know that. That's not the point. It's one of those false comparatives. Well, would you rather have? Well, no, we don't have the choice. What I'd rather have is Biden be effective. Good luck. It isn't like, I'd rather have, what if we had Trump? It doesn't. That's a false choice. We don't have that option. And it's all speculative, what Trump would have done or not done. But what's interesting to me is the media as much as anything else. But I want to finish the political part first. It's striking to me that you have Democrats who have always been more willing to let foreign policy go to the stronger powers. Well, that's not a good way to phrase it. Let me phrase it better. They've been less willing to confront these kind of dictators militarily or with strength. It's really interesting now to hear many of the Democrat politicians say we need to stand up for the Ukraine and do these hard things. And I have that clip from Kamala Harris that's just egregious. Well, Taylor, I won't go ahead and play it, but in a minute, just a second, I'll let you know. But I want to set it up. Kamala Harris was speaking to the leaders of the EU yesterday. And it just, I was embarrassed for the United States. This woman is an embarrassment as a vice president. She gets up there and goes, listen, guys, and that's not, you'll hear the quote. Let's think about what's going on here. Like as if they needed to be reminded. Kamala Harris is a lightweight, intellectually, politically, morally. She does not have the substance needed to lead this country or speak for this country in these type of situations. Play the clip, if you would, Taylor.
I mean, listen, guys. We're talking about the potential for war in Europe. I mean, let's really take a moment to understand the significance of what we're talking about. It's been over 70 years. And through those 70 years, as I mentioned yesterday, there has been peace and security. We are talking about the real possibility of war in Europe. So our position is for us very clear, which is as a leader, which we have been, bringing together the allies, working together around our collective and unified position, that we would all, not just prefer, we desire, we believe, it is in the best interest of all that there is a diplomatic end to this moment.
Well, that's complete farce. There is no diplomatic end. I've talked about that already. The only diplomatic solution Putin will accept is our complete capitulations. But I was astounded. If I were a leader in the European Union and she was addressing me like, listen, guys, let's think about what we're talking about. As if they didn't know. It's like, oh, my stars, this is serious. No, they are well aware of this threat, much more than we are here in this country because their proximity to it. And the idea that this woman's going to come in and say, look, guys, this is serious. I'm not trying to be sexist here, so don't go down that route. It's not it at all. One of my favorite heroes is Margaret Thatcher. I mean, there's no sexism there. I mean, she would have grabbed old Putin by the nose and given him a beating. But the point is that that this is what is passing for what we call diplomatic strength. Sending Kamala Harris over there to tell the European leaders, listen, guys, this is really serious, like for sure. And I saw that and I didn't even know how to respond to that. But anyway, the media hypocrisy is interesting because you have, if this were a Republican president, you'd have people in the media, particularly on Fox, that would be all over it. Several of the Fox commentators have been, at best, neutral. Some oppose what we're doing in the Ukraine. Tucker Carlson's one of them. I listened to talk radio yesterday when I was driving home from DBU, and I don't listen to talk radio very much. I listen to sports talk. I listen to 105.3 The Fan. So there's a plug for you guys on my vast listening audience. But I said I want to hear what's being said, and I listened to a couple of the conservative talk show hosts, and they were very lukewarm at best about our support of the Ukraine. They thought it was, well, is it really our business? And it's all Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden is not at fault for Putin's aggressive maneuvers, but Biden's at fault is a lack of response that shows genuine intention and real authority. Biden's waffling around on this. He's been making all the speeches, but basically, Putin's been playing Joe Biden like a Stradivarius violin. He, and so that's where my fault with Biden is. It's not so much that let me rephrase. This has been in the works for decades, since the fall of the Soviet Union. Certainly, it's been in serious operation for the last 2 decades, and that includes both Republican and Democratic administrations. So I don't say Biden is the cause of this. What I'm saying is Biden's response to this is inadequate and befuddled. And he's getting schooled by an aggressor. But the media, again, I'll go back to them. You get these people on a lot of the media that would be absolutely apoplectic if Trump were doing the same thing. And they'd be absolutely supportive if a Republican, particularly Trump, are doing it. I think we've so politicized our foreign policy that it really doesn't matter what is going on or what the impact is or what the effect is on the American people. It depends on who's president, if I'm going to support it or not. It's not in my best interest, or it is in my best interest. Does it matter? Is it a Democrat or Republican in office? And that's how people are viewing this. Well, it's Joe Biden, I'm supporting it. If it's Trump, I'm not. Vice versa. That's bullcorn. These policies and these events transcend partisan politics. We need Joe Biden to step up and be tough about it, not just waffle around. Well, is this an invasion or not? Are we going to have mild or semi-mild sanctions? Is this really enough to trigger harsh sanctions? Now let's talk about a word on the sanctions. I'm running close on time, so I'm going to talk about, are sanctions successful? Well, it's successful in bringing misery to the people of the countries, but not to their leadership. We have harsh sanctions on North Korea. And that fat boy Kim Jong-un still was cranking along, he and his supporters. And they're real good at getting around these sanctions. There's a lot of smuggling and black markets and whatever else. We have a massive one on the Taliban. Who's suffering? The Afghan people. There was a couple of horrendous news stories last week on the major network news that just made my heart sink. The famine, 20 million Afghans are at risk. They were talking about, and it's no joke, they showed it on the news, young men selling body organs on the black market to make money enough to feed their families. I couldn't believe it. They had this one young boy pull up his shirt to show his scar where he had a kidney taken to sell to the black market. I was astounded. Is that Joe Biden's fault? You bet it is. He didn't get us in Afghanistan, but he got us out so badly that the people of Afghan are suffering for it. You bet it is. Even the New York Times called him out for it yesterday. Ezra Klein's article says this is the worst thing that's happened and will happen in his administration unless he fixes it. But the sanctions aren't going to hurt the fat boys on the top of the Taliban. It's going to hurt the Afghan people. Same with Iran. We've had massive sanctions on Iran, yet they're on the verge of a nuclear bomb. Now, is it hurting Iranian people? Sure it is. But not the Ayatollahs, not the political and military leadership. They're not going to miss any meals. So I'm saying that we need to just forget about sanctions altogether? Absolutely not. There are sanctions we can do that would hurt the Russians, even at the top. Well, first of all, exclude them from the world currency markets and foreign markets altogether. Foreign trade agreements, foreign markets, particularly, though, the conversion. Right now, he's been stashing as much American currency, American dollars, Putin I'm talking about, to offset this. But sooner or later, that's going to run out. But they need to exclude him from the world currency markets like they did with the Soviet Union back in the late 80s. It would hasten their demise. Thank you, Mr. Reagan. We need to exclude them from any foreign investment. Yeah, it's going to cost us some money. But we shouldn't be making money off the misery of people, other people like that. Exclude foreign investment. Biden did it to those two regions. I bet there ain't a dime of foreign investment from the United States in those regions. But exclude foreign investment. See how far they could go. Also exclude them from international athletic events. The Winter Olympics this year were a disgrace. The Russians were banned because of their doping. So they came as the Russian Olympic Committee, so Russian athletes could compete. And then you saw what happened in skating and other things. It was just a mess. Exclude them from World Cup, exclude them from international competition, sanction their athletes. Okay. Will this hurt the United States? You bet. But this is a price we're going to pay now, particularly when the oil and gas prices start rising. Oil and gas, I'm going to just take a quick look right now on the Wall Street Journal since I have it already booted up and see what the markets are doing. Well, they're dropping 425 points as I speak, as was expected. But as far as oil, it's at $93 a barrel, which is almost twice what it was about a year and a half ago. And that's an intentional comparison. So under Mr. Biden, oil and gas has gone up close to 100%. And it's going to go up even higher. Why? Because that's what happens when you have an oil exporter that's going to be sanctioned. This is a price we're going to have to pay. Yesterday, as I was listening to these talk radio shows, they had Allard quoted, from a podcast. I don't know what he was doing. As newscaster, and they had played a clip of Allard. And if you don't know who that is, that's our congressman that represents East Dallas and the suburbs around there, like Mesquite, et cetera. And he has a piece almost into Highland Park, even, in a weirdly drawn district. But the point is that Colin Allred said we're going to all have pain at the pump. Yesterday, Kamala Harris said we're going to have pain at the pump. This is the result of the oil and gas policies of Mr. Biden, where they have shut down a lot of oil and gas production and the shutdown of the Dakota pipeline. This is, we were energy independent 2 years ago. Now we're not. And so when you go see the pump rising and you see those little stickers, says Biden did that. Did he cause all this international stuff? No, but he put us in a position we were not going to be able to weather this very easily. And when oil and gas goes up, everything goes up. It's not just the gasoline, but every product that uses petroleum, which is numerous, all the synthetics and whatnot, they're going to go up. The transportation costs are going to go up. Our supply lines are going to get hurt more than they are right now. Your grocery bill is going to be higher if it ain't high enough now. All this because of the policies that Biden imposed in the first year of his administration on energy production. And this is what we got to expect. And we're going to feel what's going on in Ukraine. And this is part of it is the price we pay for having gone away from energy independence. Now, I get all the global warming, Green New Deals, all that. That's wonderful. But we're going to be paying the price for it right now. And I don't even know what to say about that. It just, I would say that inflation is going to be even stronger in the summer if this continues. And also, when we're talking about any other type of sanctions or diplomatic sanctions, you could sanction certain Russian individuals, whatever else. One of the articles I read that said sanctions really are ineffective. They shouldn't really be attempted. Is that Russia will go to China instead of the United States, and China and Russia will form this partnership. And they're already making joint communications. There's been several between him and Putin and Xi Jinping. But the point is that I think what would happen if Russia and China partnered up, Russia would find out very, very quickly what that means to be a partner of China. We feel it, where China is not going to be an equal partner, and Russia will be the junior lapdog of China. And I can't imagine the Russian people, particularly Putin and his crowd, being happy under that kind of situation where they're basically a secondary power to China. China already is too dominant with the United States in terms of our economic and political relationships. But we don't like it. And we're going to try to do something about it, hopefully. But as far as Russia, let's see how long that lasts when they're a junior partner to China. I give it about a month. But there you are. I hope you share this with your friends. The Ukraine has been on my mind a lot the last few months, weeks, whatever. Because I see things happening in there. They're going to have massive ramifications for Europe, for Taiwan. If we don't stand up to this, what was China going to do for Taiwan? I see massive repercussions in the American economy. And again, I don't see a diplomatic solution in which we don't capitulate. And I'm just as afraid of that. If we capitulate to Russian demands and allow this to stand and allow further aggression to go on, then NATO is through, the American alliances are through, and we're going to have a real problem on our hands. So share this with your friends if you would, because I think they need to know. Anyway, let's do the sponsors. Thank you, Daniel Crosser Burleson. Hope you're doing well. Hope very somber podcast today, but I appreciate your sponsorship. So thank you. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you, Shandy, over at Stock Steel Group. Hope you're doing well over there. She could help you buy a new home in this area, and that's not easy to do. So you need to talk to her if you're looking to move in this area. Thank you to Rex. He can help you with your retirement plans over at the Russell Wealth Group at myfinancialbox.com, and you're good to go. Also, Kimmy, see you tomorrow at the BNI meeting. 817-789-1622. Optavia is a great place to learn how to lose weight and maintain weight, your weight that you want. Same thing with Gayla Morris. Well, not the same thing, but Gayla Morris will help you with your jewelry needs. She's a wonderful young woman. She's very young to me. Everybody's young to me, but I don't mean to mess this up. But anyway, thank you, Gayla. Fine jewelry and gemstones. She can help you with cleaning. She can help you with design. Help you with repair. She repaired my wife's bracelet that she got from her grandmother, I believe, and it's a lot of sentimental value, and she took good care of it. And she also good inventory. All right, thank you to Our Place Restaurant on the highway in Allsbury. By the way, I was asked, where is Southern Gym? I want to make sure we know where that is. It's on the top floor of the Windmiller building. So I just got a little clip here. I want to make sure I can get that up right. Our Place Restaurant, everybody knows where that is. Okay, it's on Allsbury and the highway. Thank you, Otto, for your hospitality. I was there yesterday. It's all good to go. I'll see you next week, no doubt. And it's a good place to go. And also, thank you to Chris. I'm sorry, I keep getting this messed up. Thank you, Chris. Chris Notaboom at Wild Cigar and Culture. Go get a gift card. Go get a cigar. Go have a drink. It's a good place to go. You'll enjoy your time there, and it's nothing like it in Burleson. So, thank you, Chris, for your sponsorship. Thank you to Proactive Payment Solutions at proactivepaymentsolution.com. Have Antonio help you out with your point of sales operations and help you find out what's the best rates for you and the best systems for you. Thank you to Payne Beagles. I remind you that today's podcast will be his wife about the Alzheimer's Association, so check that out, about the longest day program she runs. But anyway, Payne Beagles Technology Solutions, www.beaglestech.com or 817-944-3572. Give them a call, help you turn your home into smart home. I'll help you with your aerial videography. Thank you to Tiffany at Local Life. I look forward to your next issue. Hope you're doing well. I know this is a very busy time of the month for you, so we'll see you sometime next month, and we'll talk about local business. Local Life Magazine TX.com is also up. So 30,000 homes, 110,000 people, and expanding every month. And the Burleson Radio Live 365.com. Your voice, your station, rocking and rolling as we speak. Thank you, Taylor. We'll be in the studio on Thursday. I'm going to have Malin. Well, I'm going to have an old student. She's not old, a former student. Malin Greshik is going to be on the show. And she's been suffering from multiple sclerosis. She's well known to many of the Burleson High grads. And she is in the military, and she was also on active duty for a long time. And I'm going to talk to her about her situation, how she's dealt and overcome. She's overcome this well. I mean, I keep up with her on Facebook, and she's done a great job in dealing with the cards she's been dealt. And we're going to talk about how she's overcome that, how she deals with it. Also, maybe we'll talk a little bit about Ukraine, because she is in the military. And I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen Malin in quite some time, but I see her on Facebook all the time. And I thought, this is a story that needs to be told. And so I contacted her last week, and we're set up for Thursday. This is on YouTube. So I'll be sharing this very quickly on my webpage on YouTube. So send this to your friends, and we'll see you on Thursday.